All right, let's take a look at this Newton's third law question. It says Christian is riding his skateboard. He pushes back, which is to say left, against the ground. So in this case, I've drawn this picture of Christian on a skateboard and his foot is down, pushing over to the left. Now, we all know from personal experience that if he pushes to the left, he is going to move forward, as this velocity arrow shows. So the question says, use Newton's third law to explain what would happen to Christian. And it says, use the terms action force and reaction force. Now, one of the key things here is to make sure that you're reading the whole prompt. If it says use the terms action force and reaction force, then you should make sure that you are using both of these terms, action force and reaction force. So let's take a look at what this student has written. It says Christian is pushing left, which is backwards, to go forward. This shows Newton's third law, which is reaction because it's going the opposite way. Now, this student clearly understands what's going on. She says, Christian is pushing left in order to go forward. So Christian pushes backwards on the floor in order to go forward. And the student also understands that it's Newton's third law because it has to do with something that is going the opposite way, right? Christian pushes backwards, but then he ends up going the opposite way. The missing link here is to use the term action force and reaction force. This problem is asking us to tell us what is the actual pair of forces, the action and the reaction force. One simple trick to remember is that in order to explain action force and reaction force, you always want to say action is an object pushing another object, and the reaction is always the opposite of the second object pushing back on the first object. So in this case, the first question is totally okay. Christian is pushing left, which is backwards, in order to go forward. That is going to be using Newton's third law to explain what is happening to Christian. This person has answered the part of what is going to happen with Christian. Christian is going to go forward. The missing link here is that she needs to explain why Christian goes forward. Well, Christian goes forward because the action force is Christian pushes the ground backwards. Then from there, the reaction force is just the opposite. The ground will push Christian, in this case, forward. So remember, the format next time is the action is always A pushes on B in a certain direction, and then to find the reaction force, you simply flip those around. You now have B pushes back on A in the opposite direction. Notice here how you have to identify what are the two objects that are at play now. There will never be an answer to a Newton's third law question asking about action and reaction where there's only one object. For example, I've seen a lot of students say action force is Christian pushes on the ground, and then the reaction is Christian moving forward. Now that does correctly identify what the action force is. It's one object pushing the other object. But the reaction needs to be actually the opposite of that, the second object pushing back on the first object. The reaction is not just what happens to the first object.